Stablecoins have one key flaw today. It's a stablecoin issuer makes a whackload of money, stores your underlying fiat in T-bills or whatever they decide to put it in, and they give exactly zero of that back to the users. That sucks for end users. That's really the most important thing. It sucks because it basically pushes people back to fiat.
That's Mark Greenberg from Kraken. As one of crypto's oldest and most trusted exchanges, now celebrating 14 years in the market, Kraken has evolved far beyond trading into what Mark describes as a comprehensive platform where, quote, all assets are now money. Their new neobank app, Krak, lets users save in Bitcoin, spend tokenized S&P 500, and send money globally using stablecoins as the underlying rails. In this conversation, we explore how Kraken is positioning itself as the infrastructure for the next wave of stablecoin adoption and why they believe the future looks less like two dominant issuers and more like an interoperable network where users finally capture the value they create. Here's our episode with Kraken. Season 5 of Stableminded is powered by the Global Dollar Network, the fastest growing stablecoin network in the world. Anchorage Digital, Kraken, Paxos, OKX, Robinhood, WorldPay, Bullish, and many others are earning real revenue from stablecoin activity across minting, custody, and payments. At the core of the network is USDG, a US dollar-backed stablecoin issued by Paxos. Global Dollar Network shares reserve yield directly with its partners. Join the network moving the ecosystem forward. Visit globaldollar.com/network to learn more. All right, guys. Mark, Adrian, how are we doing today?
Doing well,
Fucking good,
thanks.
man. How's it going?
I'm so excited to have you both on. Mark, you mentioned this is your favorite thing to talk about, so hopefully it'll be a fun conversation. Thank you both for taking the time. It's been really fun to dive into USDG, the ecosystem around it, how people are thinking about it, and really the unique approaches that all of the network partners are taking. So excited for this conversation. Why don't we start with each of your introductions, your role at the business, and then we'll go from there. Kick it to you, Adrian, if you want to kick us off.
Sure.
I'll try
Happy
my
to.
best to like point at people, so it makes it's always sometimes hard with two people on a pod. So I'll do my best to direct the questions.
Great. Thanks for having us, Drew. I'm Adrian Wyland. I oversee a lot of our strategic partnerships here at Kraken and have had the privilege over the last 8 or 9 months to work really closely on the Global Dollar Network and USDG. And what that's meant internally has been a lot of our product activations around the asset, participation and growth in the network, and everything that entails. And I work very closely with Mark, who represents a large part of our product org, so I'll let him give his intro.
Yeah, hey, so I'm Mark Greenberg. I lead our consumer business here at Kraken, and I put that in air quotes as I say it because it's only really partially consumer oriented now. So it's everything to do with all of our consumer trading, all of our work around the new money app we've launched, which is called Krak, which is meant to be a banking replacement, everything we do around staking and earn, and then all of our equities and tokenized equities work. And Adrian and I picked this up mostly as a passion project, actually, way back when Kraken was still trying to figure out what it wanted to do. And my background is trying to make banks suck less. Basically spent my whole career doing that in various ways inside of a bank, before that building startups for banks, before that consulting for banks. Never made enough progress on the inside. And so that's what led me to join Kraken and why I am so excited by stablecoins, frankly, as being a big part of the answer and the solve for replacing a lot of the parts of banks that don't work very well.
It's amazing. I'd love to start the conversation, just Mark, just given what you just said, Kraken does a ton of stuff. And when some people think of Kraken, they may just be thinking of one of many of those things. I'd love to hear your perspective as we start the conversation around the product suite or the full scale of what Kraken is doing. We don't need to go into each of these super, super deep, but I think that is something that makes Kraken really special and really unique, is the fact that there are so many things in a single ecosystem. Could you just paint that picture for us on, maybe also a little bit of history too on how you got here? I know this hasn't always been this way.
Yeah, Kraken is one of the oldest, safest, most reputable crypto exchanges in the world. We're celebrating our 14th birthday next week, I'm pretty sure. And we've been through all the ups and downs and sidewayses that this industry has gone through. When I talk about Kraken today, though, I like to talk about it as the Kraken platform, which is immense amount of liquidity, deposit and withdrawal for as many different asset types as we can possibly put in there. Obviously, start with crypto. We now have equities. We now have tokenized equities. We have all sorts of derivative products. And we just continue to amass more and more products at this platform level. And then we have a whole bunch of different ways to actually access that liquidity and that ability to store and that security. We have the main Kraken app, which is the consumer product meant for most folks who want to invest to trade smartly in crypto and other assets. You've got a whole pro ecosystem of products, custody and prime, and the Kraken Pro experience, Kraken desktop. And then you have our new neobank, which is called Krak. All of these things are different ways to access that underlying Kraken platform, and for different reasons and different intents. And as we believe the liquidity and power of crypto that we can provide under the hood will actually probably add even more apps and more experiences over time as we bring it into additional sectors.
Adrian, as you think also on the strategic partnerships front of this, I'd love to hear more around, given that ecosystem too, when you think of the involvement that Kraken has with external parties or the business development relationships that you're pursuing there, what parts of that ecosystem are really relevant right now, or how should the external world be typically thinking of Kraken when it comes to your role?
Yeah, I mean, I think one of the main initiatives that Mark is alluding to is we have what you can think of as Kraken's interfaces that most people interact it with, but we have a whole suite of tooling and services that's available to users through those interfaces. And increasingly, we're trying to find unique ways to provide those benefits under the brand and under the tooling of our partners across the ecosystem. Mark alluded to our own work trying to establish what you could think of as akin to a neobank on our side, but there are many of folks throughout the traditional finance ecosystem who are dipping their toes into crypto. And Kraken wants to be able to externalize so many of the things that we do so well to allow folks to integrate crypto in a compliant, a safe, a reliable way into their own apps and platforms. So increasingly, I think you'll see Kraken as the building bone or the backbone that underlies a lot of crypto activity, both within the interfaces we've developed and grown our user base inside of, but also across the ecosystem. So I think there's one way to think about it where Kraken is trying to provide that infrastructure to folks beyond the Kraken platform itself. But then also it's very important to look toward partners, networks, and new asset issuers and the like to be able to offer this breadth of services that we're trying to expand within the Kraken platform. So Mark's team has worked on both equities and tokenized equities, X stocks. Those couldn't have been accomplished without massive partnerships with really innovative companies throughout the crypto ecosystem. And USDG is also an example of it where, we spent many, many years thinking about, do we issue our own stablecoin? Do we work on a unilateral distribution agreement with one of the major issuers? Or do we align around this approach where if you want to go far, you can go together, and in a network alliance like the one we have with USDG, we can rely on partners like Anchorage, like Paxos, like Robinhood, and others to help expand a utility like stablecoin to the wider ecosystem.
It's amazing. So you both mentioned Krak. I feel like this is something I've also seen lately hit my radar and something that seems really just a big strategic focus for you in terms of where the company and where the user experience could go. Tell us a little bit about Krak and why you guys decided, maybe Mark, question for you on the product side, like what made you excited to do this strategically? Like why a product like that is exciting and what your hopes are for that business line?
Yeah, banking sucks. It still sucks. There's really no other way to say it.
It sounds like you know
than
that very
that.
personally from your
Yeah, I
background.
do. I'm a Canadian. I worked in the United States for some of my time, and then you want to pay for a beer or a coffee with somebody, and it can be very complicated. We spent a month with in Florida, and I wanted to buy something on Facebook Marketplace, and there's actually no way for a Canadian, because you can't use Venmo, you can't use the local Cash App, and so there's no way for a Canadian to even pay for something like that. And so those are just personal examples, but I hear those kinds of things from people all over the world. Way too hard to save money, to spend money, to send money around the world. Coins are part of that answer. Because if you're in Argentina, you should be able to save your money in US dollars. And if you're in Canada, you should be able to. And actually, maybe you don't even want US dollars. You want to save your money in Bitcoin or in Ethereum or in Solana or in S&P 500 X stock. That's kind of the vision behind the Krak app is all assets are money. Fiat is not the only way anymore. And you have choice no matter where you are in the world to spend, save, use your money as you see fit. And we can do this uniquely as Kraken because we have the underlying access to store and save securely these assets and then also allow you to swap them for the things that you need. And so we're really excited to use the Kraken platform to go into banking and to go into this kind of new money app type of service. Lots to figure out still, early days. App can't do everything that we want it to do right now, but I look forward to the day, which is coming soon, where crypto replaces banking.
I feel like we're in some ways already there, and kind of I've never felt more like, that moment is now personally. For you guys, when you're thinking about these products and you said 13 or 14 year journey that Kraken has had, maybe another question for you, Mark, just on the technical side of things, the product side of things, what do you find is actually the most compelling aspect technically that you guys have built, like the product or maybe a product suite or a specific part of the company that you've been able to repurpose or use? I'd imagine you have so many different things that you can now like piece together to offer or build something like Krak. I'm wondering what you think as one of those top couple things that Kraken has that it's developed over that amount of time, and what your perspective is on maybe that competitive advantage or what that looks like for you guys.
There are so many of them, but actually I'll talk about X stocks because I think it's really fun. So if you can store your checking account or your current account in fiat because you have to pay your bills in it and you have to do things, why can't you store it in something that's going to actually make you money? And I kind of think over time, maybe my checking account is stored in the X stock for the S&P 500. Why not? I can earn on that money in a different way. But I can still spend it exactly as if I was holding Canadian dollars or US dollars or US stablecoins. And so that's where I get really excited is like, hey, I no longer have to hold in a checking account that pays no yield a whole ton of money in order to be able to do the things I need to do every day. I can actually store my paycheck, store my savings, store my current account in something like X stocks and use it in a totally different way. That's, I think, the power of everything is money. Then you no longer need to use fiat as your only source of money. And as we all know, fiat hasn't been a great store of value over the last few years. And in some countries, it's never been a great store of value. So forcing everybody to use it and to put all their money into it and to store and to base everything off of it, I think is something that's very quickly going away. And our Xstocks product is a really cool way to accomplish that.
What would you say, Adrian? Do you have any thoughts on that?
Mine's plain vanilla, and I would say reliability and the ability to survive through multiple market cycles is incredibly important within crypto, especially as we try to onboard traditional financial institutions and folks who wouldn't consider themselves crypto native. Like that reputation for being in market for 14 years, for weathering the storms, for complying with regulations as they've emerged across the world is invaluable. And I was thinking about it, especially recently, because I was watching a keynote speech from Jamie Dimon, not somebody who I would normally quote in the realm of crypto, because I, differ with his opinions generally on crypto. But he made an important point during that conversation that sometimes you have to manage your business in financial services to optimize around being around, not always getting the best yield or the most revenue relative to your competitors, but surviving through really tough market incidents and being there on the other side. And that's a big part of why JP Morgan is such a massive player today, because they're a trusted institution. They take risk management seriously and they've weathered so many important cycles. So Kraken, in its 14 years, I would say, has been that pillar of reliability. And that matters when you're talking to partners externally, especially if they're not crypto native. So it's not so much a product thing. It is, and it isn't, but it's invaluable.
Yeah.
Adrian,
Speaking
you'd probably be
of,
surprised of what goes on in those banks behind the scenes. I think actually most people would be probably not as secure, not as
Mm-hmm.
high on risk management as one might think. I actually think that's where when I joined Kraken, maybe I was expecting some of those same things. And the reality is we take security seriously, way more seriously than any company I've ever been at, probably 10x more seriously. And for us, that's the thing. We store a lot of crypto. Crypto moves very quickly if you're not careful to all sorts of places you don't want it to go. And so that's the thing we've been really good at. Everything else is secondary to being a safe, easy place to store crypto if you want to.
yeah, I was going to ask, just when you guys think about partnerships, just on this kind of external facing flow that we're in here, are there any recent partnerships? We'll talk about, Paxos and the USDG one here in a little bit, but any recent partnerships or strategic alliances, customer case studies, stuff that you guys have had recently that get you really excited, or maybe illustrate where you guys want to be going in terms of the types of commercial partnerships you want more of, that you think you're competitively positioned to get more of? Any case studies come to mind? I know I'm kind of going off a script a little bit, but any case studies come to mind for you?
The Kraken's partnership with Bunk. So Bunk is a European neobank, and we are
How do
the
you spell that,
engine,
Mark?
BUNQ,
BUNQ.
and we are the engine behind all of their crypto storage and trading inside of their app. That's kind of an interesting space for us, being, again, using that like platform underlying Kraken to not only for our own experiences and apps, as Adrian was talking about, for all sorts of ecosystem partners, and we expect to do more like that. Another one is actually, I don't think I can share that one yet. So we've got a lot more coming down the pipe. Adrian, maybe you've got a few more that are public.
This will be coming out probably not for a few weeks. So if you
No,
want to spill the beans, no.
I can't spill the beans. I wish I could, but there's some really, really fun ones coming up as well. And then USDG is a good one as well, right? So like one of the things we're thinking about for all of our products is how do we make them just part of the ecosystem? We want to be multi-chain in the way we think about things. We want to be permissionless in the way we think about things. And so, in some ways, it may feel a little bit weird to partner with our competitors in Robinhood and in OKX and in many others who are part of the global dollar network, Anchorage. But actually, for us, it's actually part of what makes these kinds of crypto infrastructure plays successful. Exactly the same things with XDocs, by the way, which is us and Bybit and Gate. And I think we have more than 100 partners, and Solana and BNB. More chains to come, hopefully Ethereum soon. The way we think about these things is how do you get Kraken products, the things that we're really passionate about, into as many folks' hands as possible? And then how do we build for the kinds of things that are going to have staying power in this truly decentralized ecosystem that we're trying to build? What did I miss, Adrian?
Well, I mean, since it's a stablecoin podcast, I'll also mention that, the work we're doing with USDG can extend to other stablecoin issuers as well. And Kraken's core principle is providing services to our customers that they want and that they demand. So we'll skate where the puck is going and try to find ways to enhance the services and offerings that we can make available for stablecoins writ large to the extent it benefits our users. And I think enshrined into law, officially or unofficially via the Genius Act, is like an emphasis on interoperability. And with this regulatory permission, I think we'll see a flood of new stablecoin issuance into the market. And Kraken will endeavor to position itself in the place that we're still providing the best services for all of our customers, both retail and institutional and new enterprises who are entering stablecoin for the first time, with the sort of tooling that they've come to expect from our exchange liquidity, our ability to help with fiat on and off ramping, and so on and so forth. So I think we're entering this era where there's going to be an explosion in new assets being issued. They'll be interoperable, and Kraken hopes to be there to be able to help issuers, but also infrastructure players and so on, grow the ecosystem because, as Mark was mentioning in both of his examples with XStocks and with USDG, growth in the ecosystem at large raises all boats. Rising tides, or whatever the quote is.
Yeah. Could you unpack that a little bit more? And maybe we just go directly to USDG because I want to understand what you mean by that with like other issuers. But let's start with USDG. Can you guys describe what this relationship is? Why it sounds like this was a passion project for you or something that you got really excited about within the company. What is it that you guys are doing with them, and how does the breakdown work in terms of what gets you excited, how Kraken users or institutions will interface with this type of stuff? Would love the kind of high level overview.
Stablecoins have one key flaw today. It's a stablecoin issuer makes a whackload of money, stores your underlying fiat and T-bills or whatever they decide to put it in. They make a whackload of money and they give exactly zero of that back to the users. That's the general purpose model that existed with and still exists with Tether and predominantly with Circle, though I think they're trying to get better at this over time. That sucks for end users. That's really the most important thing. It sucks because if I want to store it basically pushes people back to fiat, because if I want to store $1,000 or $10,000 and I'm a company, I do want to make money off of that. And so you still feel this need to bring these things back into fiat or to be able to provide yield. Now, the good news is that's why I'm excited about USDG. So USDG was built so that the yield goes to folks who participate in the network. And we're seeing that predominantly flow back to users on Kraken, on Anchorage, on other platforms. We make sure to pay our users rewards for having USDG on our platform. And we expect over time that to continue into ecosystems like Inc. and others. And that was the key reason why we felt it was important to bring a different stablecoin to market. Now, the good news is that's actually less true today than it used to be. We are seeing signs that Circle is starting to realize that, yeah, hey, like maybe it's not so fair to keep all of this yield for ourselves, and we have to give some of it back to users. And how do we do that? And they're starting to figure out models around that, which is great. And frankly, as Adrian was saying, that principle is much more important to us and much more important to our users than the specific ticker name. At the same time, we do think there are reasons why Tether and Circle can't do that fully in the way that we would love for our users to receive it, and can't do it as much on chain as maybe we can, and sorry, as much as the USDG network and global dollar network can. And that's where I am still really bullish on what we're building. It's also weird in a world where we all care deeply about decentralization, and I think we do in this ecosystem, that we have these two behemoth companies that control the lion's share of the stablecoin market, not really accountable to any of the people using those stablecoins, can do kind of whatever they want. In terms of Circle, could freeze anyone they want if they so chose. Lots of like interesting complexities there. That's another reason I'm excited about a more consortium model around stablecoins with the global dollar network, where we have lots of partners who all have a say in making it work. It fits much more nicely with the Kraken and crypto ethos, which is decentralized is better than centralized. And I think we see all the benefits and some of the complexities, frankly, of the global dollar network through that. But I think the benefits outweigh the challenges for sure.
What do you think because the approach, like you said, the approach with USDG is very different than one of USDC or USDT. You could argue it's the almost opposite in terms of how it's at least commercially structured. This gets me really excited as someone who really believes in the incentive models or the payment models that can actually be created to or given to people who are either building or at the application layer, or users who are actually the ones who are showing up to a platform. Like unlocking this type of incentive is really exciting, I think, because you see a lot of money, there's a huge honeypot here if this stuff could be actually distributed in a way that aligns incentives. What do you guys see as just ways that you are planning to think through that as you think through USDG, something that is a little bit more flexible in terms of where those incentives go? Is it as simple as just like, deposits on platform will receive those incentives, or how are you thinking through pulling those levers, I guess, in a creative way from the product or from the partnership standpoint to get people, or to really maximize something like USDG?
I can say, even thinking beyond Kraken, I think one of the more innovative parts of the mutual incentive structure around USDG is trying to think through ways that folks whose businesses aren't purely built on holding USDG are still able to participate in the upside related to expanding the network. And so, of course, partners like ourselves are incentivized according to the amount of USDG we hold in custody. But the network has been very careful to also design it to reward folks for their participation in minting USDG and putting new asset into circulation, but also with regards to facilitating transaction volumes in USDG so that business models more aligned with like payment service providers, the Visas, the MasterCards of the world, the WorldPays of the world, which has joined USDG, are still incentivized to promote the asset in a way that is not necessarily tied exclusively to holding it. So rather than focus on what would be maybe like the lowest hanging fruit with regards to rewarding network participants that look a lot and feel a lot like exchanges in the classical view of stablecoins' place in finance, the network looked ahead to find the right incentive mechanisms to also help folks who are contributing to network growth through transaction volumes and through putting new money into circulation. So for Kraken, I think it's a little easier because our business, as Mark has said on this call, is to safely secure assets, right? So the custody rewards model is one that works very well for an exchange. But as time goes on and with the proliferation of things like Krak, where stablecoin become a medium of account as well as a medium for transactions, we'll find other ways to take advantage of those incentives such that we're not just incentivizing folks to hold USDG, but to use it as a dollar, to use it as a medium of exchange. And I think you'll see many of the other network members who aren't exchanges will be first leaders in figuring out exactly how to reward users, whether it's lower transaction fees, lower interchange fees, or anything along those lines, because of the benefits that stablecoin provides.
Awesome. Mark, could you, this is really interesting. So could you speak to, for me, when I think about the idea of Kraken, and this is me because I'm thinking about this maybe in a limited view, when I think about the relationship that Kraken could have with USDG and other stablecoins and other issuers, I don't really understand what that means, right? I don't understand why you would do that or the benefits of doing that. Help me understand that a little bit. If you said that before, of like the way that Kraken is situated, it could be really great to work with other stablecoin issuers or ride the wave of more issuers coming to market. Help me understand what that means or what that could look like.
Yeah, it's funny because we offer 10 different forms of a lot of tokens right now, right? We offer actually, take USDT. We offer 10 different forms of it, probably. We offer the Solana version and all the various L2 versions on various chains, etc. And nobody's ever been like, oh gosh, we should only have one and it should be the thing that we're focused on. We are a platform that provides liquidity between many different types of things. That is what we are super good at. And that's what we continue to expect to be really good at. That means allowing people to change USDC to USDG to USDT to USD1 to et cetera, down the list. That is really what people use the Kraken platform for in all sorts of different ways. What does that mean? It means if I want to pay Adrian back for that beer I was talking about, and he wants it in USDT, but I'm a USDG user, he can just have it that way, and we can just do that transfer. We don't have to think about all the fact that, oh, I'm on Kraken, therefore I can only do this one way. That's super important for us. Decentralized yield, access to everything are all really important to us. And so the more ways we can do all those things for our users, the better. What is that going to mean for every individual stablecoin? Not sure. Is the global dollar network a little closer to that ethos for us in a lot of ways? Sure, absolutely. But that doesn't stop us from wanting to be the liquidity provider for all of these different things and to offer the exchange of all of these different things and to offer yield on as many of them as we possibly can and to be that central spot where users can change A to B, whether that A is a stock or a derivative or a money market token or a crypto token or a stable coin. We want to be able to offer all of those things on the platform, and therefore we'll end up with all sorts of different conversations with every issuer of everything under the sun we can possibly think of, and that's really our hope over time. And stablecoins no different.
Could you speak, Mark, to the specific, like when you're thinking about interoperability, you have all of these different assets that are hitting the market. People are saying, and there's a common talk track around fragmentation and liquidity issues. As more stablecoins hit the market, people are concerned for this very reason that that's going to hurt user experiences. I've personally been on platforms where, let's just say I have $100 or something, and it's actually split up between 3 or 4 different places, and it makes transacting really hard. On the product side, feel free to get a little technical here if you want to, but I'd love to understand how this is actually working. We interviewed the Wormhole team on one of our last few seasons, and that was a really interesting conversation talking about interoperability and a company like that, how they can play a role here. Would love to better understand, like, when you say that is happening, how it's happening, what type of like custodial wallet infrastructure or non-custodial wallet infrastructure would be used. Would love to just like kind of see under the hood of that a little bit.
My dream at some point is that you don't even have to know which stablecoin you're using, and it all just kind of works. And if you think about some of the chain abstraction we've done at Kraken, it actually does work that way. You don't really know when you're on platform which chain behind the scenes we're storing your ERC20 token on, and like which L2. It doesn't actually matter that much to you. And we work hard to make that available to you on whatever chain you need when you want to take it off. That's all that matters, really, so that you can have it. And that's what a centralized exchange like Kraken actually can be really good at. Technically, what does that mean? It means we're thoughtful about the deposits and the withdrawals on all of these different chains and networks and approaches, and that we do a lot of hard work behind the scenes to make sure that we can net out all those deposits and withdrawals to make sure that most of the time in most places we have what you need when you need it immediately. And we're pretty darn good at that. That's actually why Kraken is what it is. I'd love to get to a place where we could make stablecoins the same. I bring in a USDT and I bring out a USDG and I store it in a USDC in the middle. The easier and lower friction that is, the more this kind of thing goes away. And what does that mean behind the scenes? It means we have really solid mint burn relationships with different platforms so that we can actually have the right kind at the right time, and that we do all of the same work we do across chains to make sure that when you want your USDT off the platform or you want to deposit a USDC, we're ready for that on any chain in any environment. And then the next question is, how can Kraken more and more bring that kind of capability and that power that we have in the centralized exchange into the on-chain world? And while we're probably not ready today on the solve for that yet, we are working on it. And we think it's just as important to be able to do that same kind of abstraction as much as possible on chain. And so lots of cool things coming from Kraken in that regard over the next second half of the year here. But that's the dream. Are we there yet? Is it perfect? There are lots of folks who want to be really thoughtful about exactly which stablecoin they're holding at any point in time. That's good. We should be able to support that as well. So we're just working through all the various components and making sure if you don't want to pay attention to it, you don't have to. And if you do, you can. And that's where I think the UX of this gets really interesting and something that we spend a lot of time talking about here at Kraken.
What would you say of the user base would be, based on the data you have or just your instincts, how if there was a pie chart of people who would care about what stablecoin they were holding versus maybe a user who could care less? Is Kraken's current user base, or maybe this changes by product offering, I'd imagine, but what are those types of users that you're seeing across the stack and what they care about? And maybe that might help illustrate a little bit of like what users are where, or Adrian, for you, like what specific partnerships or external parties you are working with for each part of the business. I'd be curious to know more about that too, especially as I'd imagine the last few weeks have just been incredibly exciting on the commercial front. Would love to dive into that a little bit, just what customers look like, what users look like across the board.
I'm kind of like pre-selling a feature that we're building as we speak. So that's always dangerous to me. But so we're going to start with the Krak app in this regard. You're going to see, let's call it like USD with a little star next to it or something like that, instead of all the individual stablecoins that you're holding in that segregated wallet. It's an experiment for us. We've never done that at Kraken. There are other apps that do that right now, but Kraken's never done it. And we think that's probably the most obvious place to start in that regard, insofar as like when you're going, if you imagine the Krak app as your like checking account or something like that, it tends to be the place where actually just like having the thing and spending the thing matters the most, and which thing you're storing it in matters less. We're going to start there, try it, and then think about if, how, when we expand it. I would be remiss to say we haven't had long, like we have had long debates on the subject here at Kraken, and there are lots of different points of view on this. And actually, I think that's probably equally true of our user base. Some are like, oh my God, that would be amazing. Others are, I need to know exactly what I'm in. I remember the Circle DPEG. I remember all sorts of other events. Like maybe I don't want to store in X or Y, or I don't want you to have the choice behind the scenes. And so we're going to continue to figure it out. I would say the same way that Kraken really nicely supports users who want to store balances on Kraken and users who want to store balances in self-custodial wallets and bring money, crypto assets in and out as they want to trade. This kind of option's seamless as well and support both. Do I know exactly what the split will be? No, and it actually changes depending on the market and how things are going as well, and how much risk people are feeling on stablecoins, etc. Probably a few less people, more self-custodial wallet holding after FTX than before, and probably a little bit less today than right after FTX. And so that'll continue to change. We'll continue to have all those options available, and we're going to continue to experiment on it. But yeah, I don't know, Adrian, what did I miss there?
Well, yeah, I think the additional point would be that in Kraken Consumer, the thesis might be that, name your stablecoin, it's less important to the user than the user experience is in and of itself. But we also have our pro business. And my thesis there is that there's a lot more exhibited loyalty to specific assets because, for better or worse, Circle and Tether are innovators and they have a massive network effect and a lot of brand loyalty to the assets that pro traders like to trade. And it's because they're used to the depth of the order books that we have on those assets against both crypto, other stablecoin pairs, fiat pairs, and they would be hard pressed to look to an alternative that doesn't have the same sort of network effect. Whether they want to use that asset on Kraken, or they want it universally accepted at pretty much every other exchange in the world, or if they want to bring it on chain and use it there. The network effects matter. So I would imagine that if you think about the different business lines for Kraken, whereas in consumer, the bet would be the exact stablecoin is less important. For pro, I think for a very long time, we'll see users exhibiting a specific demand for a specific type of asset based on the utility that they're used to. The other thing I would add is that regulations are changing around the world, and as businesses in Europe and in the US start to come under the Genius Act in the US and are now under the MiCA regime in Europe, there may be regulatory reasons that certain users have to use certain assets that comply with those regulations, whether it be like a US dollar denominated stablecoin, which dominates most of the market cap today, or in the future, preference for euro denominated stablecoins or GBP denominated stablecoins. So Kraken is trying to look ahead to that future and work with issuers in each of those licensing regimes so that we can meet users where they're at when they're ready.
Mark, you mentioned there was just like some internal debate. I was listening to the tokenized pod by the Simon and Kai Sheffield, and they were interviewing Stripe's Will Gabrick, I believe, president of the firm. They were talking about that same debate, I believe, on the Stripe dashboard and how Stripe wanted to, as they think through their payment experience for their merchants that's now going to be stablecoin native, how they want to make that look and how transparent really they want to be around what's under the hood. What was that debate like on your side? Who was debating? Like, what were both sides of that debate? What were they saying? Take us into that room if you can. What side were you on? Give us the tea.
Yeah, well, you can hear my side of it. I'm all for simplicity. Actually, that's probably my. But I also am not naturally a huge like pro trader myself, right? So I do think, as Adrian pointed out, the more pro the more of a trader you are, the more you want to manage as much of the risk management yourself. And the more you want to, uh, but and so users, including our team who are more that direction, are more excited to make sure that they have all the tools at their disposal in everything that they do, including having deep understanding of every asset and how they're holding it and where they're holding it, what chain they're holding it on, etc. Um, if you're me and you trade for fun and buy silly assets like Fartcoin from time to time, then maybe you care a little bit less about that. And that's okay too. And actually, they're just different intents and different levels of intensity on how much you want to engage in the way you trade, the way you invest. And I think the only answer is it's all of the above. I think that's kind of where we all came to, is that we're all right. And there actually is no debate here. We just have to make sure that users have the choice. The same way we give them the choice on ladder trading or simple buy button, right? Like one click trade, one click buys. We want to have both those choices in the same way we want to have the choice on how much you really get into the depth of what you're holding under the hood. You're on
Sorry, I was
mute,
muted.
yeah.
Well, this flew by. I was sort of looking. I was looking at the clock and I was like, oh my gosh, we're already approaching time here. I guess for us, as we attempt to close or land the plane, when you guys think about the future here and where you guys think about the role that stablecoins have to play in that, it's almost an overwhelming thing to think through when I think about Kraken's business because of how many different parts of it you guys have mentioned. Maybe for each of you as we close, when you think of the one area of the business when it relates to stablecoins, and whether that's a infrastructure thing or a commercial thing or partnership thing, when it relates to stablecoins, what is the specific part of the business, product line, business line, thing that's on the horizon that gets you guys most optimistic or most excited to be working at Kraken and building this business individually? And I guess I'll start, Adrian, with you. I'll put you on the spot.
I might steal Mark's thunder because I'll say Krak. I too listen to the tokenized podcasts and I read some of the stuff that Kai Sheffield puts out. But the thing I go back to pretty frequently is the dashboard that Visa and Allium created to sort of debunk the headline number that everyone likes to say, that stablecoin transaction volumes over the last 12 months have been greater than 30 trillion, which would mean that it's also greater than like Visa or Visa plus MasterCard. Something crazy. And Visa's done the work to basically pick apart that data and adjust it to try to understand what are the real payments-oriented use cases around stablecoin. And when you remove a lot of the smart contract type activity and you remove a lot of the market makers moving assets between exchanges, you're left with something like a quarter of that volume over the last 12 months, 7 trillion or something to that effect. Still a huge number. Kai cut it down one level further and said, how many of those transactions are less than $250, which he equates to something like a retail payment. And I'm probably misquoting, but it's like maybe 50 billion. Tiny, right? And so all these stats are out there in the world where people are saying stablecoins are the new payment rails and the new infrastructure for our financial ecosystem, which may be true, but it isn't true yet. And it's certainly not true for folks who are using stablecoin for day-to-day payments. And I think Krak is a bet on whether or not Kraken can help drive more of that day-to-day use case for stablecoin so that people can experience the benefits of like 24/7 global money transfer and start, I would love to see that under number on stablecoin transactions grow because of contributions like Krak.
Mark, any thunder left?
Yeah, no, lots of thunder. To be honest, this is the first year where people realized how crappy the existing world of bank to bank fiat transfers were and how great stablecoins are at it. And I agree with Adrian. We're just seeing the start of the movement here away from sending wires, which we still do at Kraken all the time and drives me totally crazy, to moving money as tokens. And I get excited by the fact that a whole bunch of these more legacy players have finally woken up to the fact that it just isn't going to work unless they get on board. And frankly, it's cool to see Stripe investing so heavily in this and caring about it and putting this front and center. But we need everybody in the whole ecosystem too. I'm excited to see a lot of those players join the global dollar network, including like traditional like core banking system providers. That's cool. And then I look forward to the next generation of them, right? So yeah, maybe we're not there yet. And it doesn't really matter. The reality is every time anyone goes to send a wire, they are wasting money, time, and energy. There's no reason for that. It's like checks. How many checks do people send around anymore? Still a few in the US, but a lot less. At one point, people were like, checks will never die. They're the most important thing in the ecosystem. Wires are that today, and we'll get rid of them soon. And Kraken is playing a super cool role inside of that. So
Yeah.
super optimistic on where this is heading. And yeah, whether it's Krak on the consumer side or whether it's all the stuff we're doing on B2B, this is coming really, really fast.
So right now I can download Krak. I'm in the US, like it's available now. It's an iOS app, like it's ready to go.
Well, yeah, iOS, Android,
Amazing.
anywhere in the world, you can download it. You can save, you can send money. If you send once a day, you can get a Krak back right now, which is one token.
Krak back.
You get a random token back, both you, the person you sent to, and you. And that can be anything from a fart coin, which isn't worth very much, all the way up to a Bitcoin. We haven't given out the Bitcoin yet, so I'm looking forward to the transaction that's going to win a free Bitcoin.
Gotcha. Okay, cool. Well, guys, thanks for the time here. It's really, really great to finally get a chance to break down parts of this business. I mean, you guys have just continued to ship great things, continue to remain secure, remain long-standing, and one of the brands, in my view, that is really leading the charge, one of the most notable exchanges and long-standing businesses in the space. So appreciate your time. Thank you for the work you're doing and all things stablecoins. We'll have to do it again soon.
Thanks, Drew. It's been
Thanks,
awesome.
Drew. Bye for
Awesome.
now.
All right. Bye.